SaaS Therapy.
Welcome to SaaS Therapy, the show devoted to helping you save your most important business relationships, your customer. I'm Casey Trail. Normally, my host, the host of this podcast, Todd Kirk, is with me, but today I am doing this by myself. Todd and I just recently did a podcast around MEDDPICC, and this is a follow-up resource where we're breaking down in each one of its individual modules of MEDDPICC. So let's just give a brief overview of MEDDPICC really fast. So you know, if this is your first podcast that you're listening to around this is just dedicated to be 10 minutes or less, and we're going to break down the 8 components of MEDDPICC. So what is MEDDPICC? MEDDPICC is a common vocabulary, a way for you to be able to see how are you actually doing with your customers. So let's get started. Let's jump in. And the first component of MEDDPICC is the M, which stands for metrics. Now, metrics has 2 key components: quantitative data and qualitative data. So when you're working and you're working on a renewal with your customer and you're starting to build out the case and why your customer should renew, we want you to focus down on 2 key areas. So quantitative data, usually the one that we gravitate to most in customer success, is monthly active usage. That sits on the quantitative data side. If you're lucky enough to have your application actually save people hard cost in dollars, and you can prove that within your application, that sits on quantitative data, right? But there's a second component of metrics, which is qualitative data. This is data that maybe your NPS score falls under. This is data where users, licensed users of your software, report back to their champion, this has been the best software we've ever used. I love coming to this, makes my job easier. I've saved X amount of time in my day because of this application. Qualitative data sometimes can be just as powerful as quantitative data if your customer finds value in it. So when you're going through metrics and you're sitting down with your customer success team, if you're working with your customer, one of the things that you want to make sure that you're focused down on is this measurable unit, whether it be quantitative or qualitative. Does this actually matter to the customer? So one of the best practices that we'll give to you as you're going through metrics is you should have a pre-call with your champion to test the data that you have, to stress test to see if this is valuable or not valuable. So as you're going through metrics, you would want to have ready, say, hey, as we're preparing for our upcoming QBR, or as we're preparing for our upcoming renewal, I want to review some of the data that I found interesting. And it doesn't necessarily just need to be for QBRs. It doesn't necessarily just need to be during that renewal time and negotiation. This should be something that you set on a regular schedule, right? If we're about ready to do this with the software, if this is the new behavior changer, this is the business result that we're going after, how would we be able to measure that? And how would we know that that was successful? So 2 key points around this. Number 1, make sure that as you're discussing this with your customer, it's agreed upon units of measurement. And again, don't forget qualitative and quantitative. Number 2, in regards to this, your point of contact won't always know. So you could identify a fantastic project. You could say, okay, we want to roll out your software. Here's what we want to have accomplished. Well, how would we measure that? A lot of times you're going to hear your customer on their end there saying, well, I don't know. How else would you do that? Okay, this is where it gets fun with data. So a couple things that you might want to look at. Number 1, do you have other customers that you can bring on a call to say, here's how we measure success. Here are some of the things that we've done in the past to measure the effectiveness of utilizing the software and the business impact that it's had. Fantastic way to do that. If you have customers that are very successful, they always like to share best practices, unless you're, of course, in something that's competing. But again, your customers can be some of your greatest ways to help your point of contact define out success metrics. Okay. That's point number one. Point number two is if they struggle with understanding what a success metric might look like, this is your chance to maybe get that economic buyer back in. So, one of the things that is, and I'm going to role play really quick here with you. So, talking to your customer, hey, one of the things that might assist us in this to make sure that we're measuring according to something that that your organization and your higher ups would actually find valuable is, what if we were to bring them in the call? Let's walk through the scenario and the use case that we've discussed and ask for their feedback in how they would measure that success. I saw one SaaS vendor do this. They were successful in getting their champion to bring on the executive sponsor. And they asked that question, okay, here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help our users get out of email. We want our employees to be better in using chat and online collaboration. Executive, how do you suppose we would measure that? What would be a good measuring stick for that? And with just not even blinking, it was the CTO said, hey, my strategic initiative, as we met as an executive team, my strategic initiative was to save every employee 15 minutes. If there was a way for me to report back that employees said they saved 15 minutes of their time, that would be a massive win. Awesome. Okay, there we have. Now notice though that data is a little bit more quantitative in doing that. We're going to have to get user feedback, right? Now you can see as a customer success manager how you can now develop a plan with your point of contact to actually make sure the right features and benefits are rolled out, the right communication is sent out around that, and then being able to help your customer capture that information, whether it be through surveys or however you might be able to do that, to say, okay, I know what we're measuring against, and now the two of you can work together to put that process in motion. So you can see how powerful metrics are. Again, going back to the keys of metrics, quantitative and qualitative. Make sure that your customer agrees upon it. If they struggle with trying to find a way to measure that, bring in other customers, or if you have customer success stories, things that you can show to your point of contact to get them thinking. Or number two, it's usually a great way to invite in that executive sponsor to have them give their feedback, which usually is matching to a larger initiative. Thank you for joining us for this 10-minute segment on MEDDPICC and in particular metrics. And your homework today is, as you go and look and work with your customers, find what unit of measurement that they actually care about.